So hi everyone. First of all, I'm truly delighted to have Professor Márta Korbonits here with me today. We'll be doing a short interview for our EYRC Training Program, and thank you very much, first of all, for accepting this invitation. We are here in beautiful Istanbul at the European Congress of Endocrinology, and Professor Márta did a great talk today, this morning. I think I don't need to introduce you, Márta, but is a well-known professor of endocrinology, professor of endocrinology and a consultant endocrinology at William Harvey Research Institute, Bart and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry at Queen Mary University Hospital, also working at Bart's, and extensively worked and published on many different aspects of endocrinology, mainly pituitary diseases, genetic aspects of pituitary tumours, pathogenesis, microenvironment, etc. Today was about pituitary tumours, genes, microenvironment, and the future prospects. What are the main highlights and take-home messages for your beautiful talk today?
So I tried to summarize what happened in the last year or so in terms of pituitary field, and with my own selection, of course, there are plenty of beautiful papers. But I talked about one which was explaining a very interesting situation regarding GPR101. We have now an explanation why there is such a high expression of this particular G protein coupled receptor in patients with X-linked acrogigantism, and the answer is really that this disease is a pedopathy, which is a type of disease when you have borders within the genetic regulations kind of destroyed by the variant which happened, and therefore you have a different regulation of certain genes. So these are pedopathies, and this is the first endocrine pedopathy, which was published by Trivellin and colleagues in 2022. Then I talked about also a unique paper from Japan, where they had a patient from actually quite long ago, but they managed to figure out what was the clinical and genetic abnormality. She had a phenotype very much like X-LAC, but the result of X-LAC mutation, and they realized that a large deletion actually brought together a generally expressed promoter as a GHRH gene. So this person was making GHRH all over the body, presumably, and they created a beautiful mouse model to prove their hypothesis. So it's a very nice, probably never be another patient like this in the world, but this patient is now kind of fully characterized, so it's a really nice piece of work. And then I talked a little bit of our data regarding AIP. I talked about the phenotypic diversity of patients with AIP tumors, and then I started to talk about trying to figure out why only in the pituitary we get tumors with AIP loss of function mutations when AIP is expressed everywhere, and the solution was found in a collaborative project with Clara Alvarez from Spain. She is an expert on the RET gene in the pituitary gland, which is expressed primarily in the PIT1 lineage cells, and what we showed in this study that the intracellular part of the RET receptor, caspase-3, PKC delta, and AIP creates a complex, and this complex upregulates the apoptosis pathway, and if you lose AIP from these cells, you will have a proliferative effect. And because this complex can only happen in the PIT1 lineage cells and primarily somatotroph cells, a little bit in TSH and prolactin cells as well, that explains why we only see PIT1 lineage tumors both in the human patients, and I also showed some data on our animal model, which is a pituitary specific knockout of AIP, and also the animal model shows tumors in these three lineages. And then I talked a little bit about AIP's role in the heart. We realized that AIP is very important for the function of the heart, even in a fully grown animal, because with a tamoxifen-inducible knockout, when we're turning off AIP, the animal suffers from cardiac failure and actually dies eventually. And we created a knockout in the zebrafish, and we already finding that the homozygote knockout animals, they have an enlarged heart in the zebrafish, and we need to learn exactly what AIP is doing in the heart. We know already that development is important, but turning it off in a fully grown animal and having heart failure, that's very important. And the clinical relevance of this would be that patients with AIP mutations who have growth hormone excess, they would have a growth hormone excess related heart condition, cardiomyopathy and acromegaly cardiomyopathy, but we don't know if on top of this they only have half of the amount of AIP in their cardiac muscle. Would this be important for kind of giving them a more severe cardiac phenotype? We don't know that yet, but this is something to figure out in the future. So this is probably a bit of a summary what I talked about.
Okay, Marta, thanks so much. For question number 2, we all read with great interest your paper, published together with many centers in the UK on endocrine-related cancer, on acromegaly associated, headache associated to acromegaly, and the role of somatostatin analogs. So, what about how frequent and what are the features of acromegaly-related headaches, and what is the role of somatostatin analogs in the treatment of and management of these cases?
So acromegaly headache is a real problem, and we worked on this with John Wass and a couple of other colleagues, and our first author is Sonia, who is from Poland, and she really made a good job to bring together all plenty to do, because we don't know, for example, your first question, what's the frequency? We don't know. We know how frequent is headache in acromegaly, but we don't know what is the frequency of this very special type, which is really not responding to anything except giving them like a short-acting somatostatin analog. And there are plenty of cases and some reports on the usefulness of this, but then sometimes the patients give frequently small doses of short-acting octreotide, so much so that they kind of almost become dependent on it. So it could be a real problem. And in some patients, octreotide doesn't really work very well, and there are now a few cases of pasireotide, which seems to be really powerful to have this unique acromegalic headache. Again, there is very little data. Some patients are on long-acting pasireotide and therefore kind of having good effect. We don't know if a short-acting pasireotide would be also useful in some cases. So this is something which is for some patients is a major problem. We don't have the proper cause of the disease. In some patients, if there is a side of the headache, it's very often on the side where the tumor would have a cavernous sinus invasion, so you would think that local irritation of the trigeminal nerve or any of the branches might play a role, but other people suggested that maybe from growth hormone tumors there is some endocrine factor released, and that is the cause of the headache, but nobody identified these factors yet. So it's quite a poorly researched area. We have clinical experience, but we don't have good basic research on this side. But we try to summarize the data which is available in the literature in this paper, and then put in a couple of patients from all over the country to give a basis for other people and maybe for us as well to then do some proper studies on acromegaly headache.
So Marta, moving now more towards the career-related question, and actually having your advice on this is very helpful for us, young endocrinologists and young researchers. I'm just wondering what are your advice in how best how to become a world-leader endocrinologist and a basic scientist, an investigator, and also how to balance our work life and how do you do this?
Yeah, well, it's a very difficult question. So first of all, you probably need to love your subject. That's probably the most important thing. You really need to be enthusiastic, which many people are, so there's no problem there. But that kind of takes you through the difficult parts and the difficult issues. Secondly, you really need to be lucky to be in an environment where they support you and they kind of give you opportunity, and maybe you need to look for these opportunities. Maybe you need to kind of at least temporarily go to another place where you learn new techniques or new things, and then you take them back home. You need to apply for grants, and when with grant writing, people do need a lot of help, so make sure that you have your grants reviewed with as many people as possible before submitting, because there's not many chances to submit that. You need to collaborate. That's very important, that you set up good collaborations. So if there is a technique which it's impossible to set up where you are, then you need to collaborate with people. You keep kind of good relationships, so the work will be successful, coming the expertise from several sides. Keeping a work-life balance, that's very tricky, and obviously good family support is very important. And I always say I'm really kind of thankful to my kids that they were never ill, so it's not that I had to kind of stay at home. I couldn't carry on with the clinical work or the research work, and had very good support for kind of childcare and spending time away from home when you're visiting congresses like this one. So without a good kind of back home basis, it's very difficult. It is difficult. So your partner needs to understand that you are very passionate about your career and you spend time with it more than 8 hours a day. But if that is there, then really nothing stops you to achieve great things.
Okay, well, very good advice for all of us, for sure. Marta, once again, thank you very much for agreeing and for being with us today for this short interview. And I hope you enjoy this and take good listen to all the science we just heard, and mainly, most important for us, tips and advice for enhancing and developing our careers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pedro.